Hello and welcome to Leveraging AI. This is Isar Metis, your host, and I have a very special episode today. Our guest today is Dror Gil. Dror is an Emmy award-winning technology and business strategist that is also an expert on generative AI. And shortly after ChatGPT came out, Dror gave himself an interesting task. He created everything needed for a startup, from idea to product, through marketing plan, business plan, and even an exit strategy, using ChatGPT in just 1 hour. When he published that on LinkedIn, it caught like wildfire. And I was as excited as everybody else and invited him to be a guest of the show. And he obliged. In our conversation, he's going to share all the different steps that he took and everything he learned for every different aspect of the business going through this amazing and fascinating exercise. So it doesn't really matter which part you are in the organization or what you do in business, you will find something highly relevant to you on how to leverage AI in your particular role. At the end of the episode, I'm going to share some fascinating, exciting, and really big news that happened in the AI world in this past week. So stay tuned for that as well. And now to the amazing interview with Dror Gil. In the next few years, AI technology will change our world dramatically. Whether you are a business executive trying to catapult your business forward, or just somebody who refuses to be left behind and want to advance your career, this is the show for you. I'm your host, Isar Metis, a serial entrepreneur and an AI enthusiast. You'll hear invaluable practical tips from innovative business leaders, AI practitioners, and some of the brightest AI minds in our world today on how you can leverage AI in ethical ways to advance your career and grow your business. Hello and welcome to Leveraging AI, the podcast that shares practical, ethical ways to leverage artificial intelligence to improve efficiency and drive business growth. This is Isar Metis, your host, and I am truly excited today. I'm a startup guy. I've been a startup guy for many years. I've been in several different startups. I'm mentoring startups and I'm investing in startups. And launching a startup is not easy. It's a very long process. There's a lot of things you can do. And all these things require generating different kinds of documents. Even from the very first step of research, right? You got to start with researching what business you want and coming up with an idea and then picking the right idea and then coming up with a name and a slogan for the startup and a business model, a product plan and a marketing plan and an org chart and job descriptions to hire people for these org chart and investor presentations and content for your website and social media posts and marketing materials. And then you start to develop the product. So you need to start writing code and managing the product. And when the time comes, you also need to start looking for people to purchase the business. So your exit strategy, find people who might be the right companies to acquire you. And then once you find the right ones, is exchanging different kinds of legal documents for the acquisition itself. So this is tedious, long, and takes a very long time. And a lot of people are experts on these different topics to generate all these documents. At least it was. Until ChatGPT came up. And my guest today, Dror Gil, challenged himself to do all these things. So from inception of an idea for a startup, through everything that I mentioned, all the way to exit strategy, finding the right companies and writing legal documents for the purchase in 1 hour using ChatGPT. And he did it successfully, which is even crazier than just coming up with the idea to do that. He created an amazing post about it on LinkedIn. This is how I found him. That post obviously exploded, so I'm not the only person who saw that post or shared it or responded to it. But the idea itself is obviously not practical. You're not really going to start a business this way, but it generates an incredible toolkit, if you want, for every aspect of the business, which is really unique, right? Because a lot of people still look at generative AI and ChatGPT specifically as a marketing tool to generate content for different things. And this really opens and widens the applications to everything and anything in the business. Dror himself is a brilliant tech entrepreneur and strategist. He's been doing startup in various positions, both inside the businesses, starting the businesses, consulting to businesses on business strategy. And in the past year, he's an AI expert as well. And so I'm truly excited to have him as a guest of the show today. Dror, welcome to Leveraging AI.
Thank you very much, Isar. It's my pleasure being here. And thank you for this wonderful introduction.
It's all you. I'm just enjoying quoting everything you did. Dror, let's start with, before we dive into the details and the process that you did, what drove you to that idea? Like, how did this start?
I was playing around with ChatGPT. That was a few days after it came out. And I was really amazed by the amount of things that you can do with it and how much it can help you in being productive in almost anything that you do. And I tried various things like create some tweets or write a blog post or write a website, all these types of contents. But then I said, oh, okay, what about ideas? And I found out that you can actually request ideas and ask the tool to come up with features for a product or for new markets for you to explore or business models or things like that. So I said, hey, I think I found a brainstorming buddy that could be a partner to my startup. Now, I have a lot of experience in startups. And as you said, you need to create a lot of documents, but you also need to come up with a lot of ideas and you have to be innovative. And initially, people said, this engine just guesses the next word in a sentence. It's not really creative. My experience was completely different. It was creative. And I want to tell you about the aha moment I had with ChatGPT. And this is when I visited a friend of mine who showed me an idea he had for a product. And just the same week, I got acquainted with ChatGPT. So I said, do you know ChatGPT? I said, no. I said, okay, I opened my laptop and I typed, give me 10 features for a product that does this. And I described this product in one sentence. And I got 10 features and I turned the screen to this entrepreneur and his jaw dropped. He was amazed. He was looking at this and said, wow, these 5 features, I know them. I have them in the presentation already. But these 5 features, I didn't even think of them. But these are great ideas. I need to try them out. Even if 1 or 2 of them are good, I'm going to put them in the product. And this was all invented on the spot by ChatGPT based on the immense amount of information that it gathered from the training on all the information on the internet. So that's when I realized this is not just a tool for creating essays and blog posts. It can really be a brainstorming partner and come up with ideas. And I was discussing this with a friend, and then I said, okay, what if I could accelerate the cycle of a startup and pack it all in 1 hour? This was the challenge that I took upon myself, in 1 hour to go through the whole process from no idea to exit. Now, as you said, I didn't plan to actually build a startup and start making money and revenues and all that. Some people wrote in the comments, yeah, but you didn't really. That wasn't the idea. The idea, as you said, was to create a toolbox for entrepreneurs and for people who work in startups and in other small businesses, that you can use ChatGPT as your partner, ask it anything, and it can come up with a lot of information that you need, both ideas and also documents that you need and plans for making your startup work. So that's basically the background of where I got the idea. And I was surprised. And people keep asking me, did you really do it in 1 hour? And then I have to say one thing, that at the time, there was no paid plan. I was using the free plan. And after half an hour, it said, too many messages in 1 hour. See you later. Okay. And this was in the morning. So I said, okay, half an hour, that's enough. In the afternoon, I came back and I worked for another 30 minutes and finished the project. So it really was 1 hour. It wasn't 1 hour straight because of the limitation of the free version at the time, but I actually did it. And it was great. And I was really surprised by the amount of traction that the post got on LinkedIn. It really went viral.
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's brilliant. I think the thought process, I think the amazing thing for people who are in just paying attention, the amount of things people are doing with these tools, it gets broader every single day. Like literally every single day, somebody comes up with another use case that is amazing and that is working right now. So it's not the future, it's the present. And all you have to do is embrace it. And you can use it for so many different aspects, both in your personal life as well as business. And with that, I really think let's start going step by step on the things you did. And if you can share some prompts that you've used, or what was the process that you used in order to drill deeper. Because again, for people who haven't used these tools, drilling down is a part of the process. Just like I think, Dror, you used the perfect word. It's a brainstorming buddy. You send it a question, it gives you an idea. You're like, oh, but so what about this? And then you keep on going deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole and finding more and more stuff. So how did you start?
Okay, so this is a key point, what you said about the conversation. It has to be in conversation, and this is one of the major tips I'm giving in the workshops I do about ChatGPT in prompt engineering is utilize the conversation and ask additional questions, ask for examples, and etc. It's a podcast, so you can't really see the prompts and the responses, but sorry, if you want, I can show you.
Yeah, I would love that. And then when we produce the videos from it, then we can share them as well.
Sure. This is where I started. I started with a question of how do you build a startup? What are the stages of building a startup? I pretended I don't know anything about it. Of course, I know a lot about it because I built several startups. So the answer was very straightforward, but also very complete. It said you need to come up with an idea, then do market research, decide on your business model, do the product development of building an MVP and testing it with customers. Then you fundraise, you get funding so you can scale your startup. Then you do the scale, you expand the business and increase your customers and your revenues. And finally, you exit, you sell the business. Very simple, 7 steps. And this is what I got from ChatGPT. I said, that's great. So let's start with step number 1. Step number 1 is idea. So give me 10 ideas for an innovative product or service that fills a need in the market and can generate significant revenues. Okay, so in the prompt, I already directed ChatGPT not to just throw off general ideas, but things that it's a really innovative, have a good business model. And I got various ideas, like 10 ideas, like a subscription-based meal delivery, which customizes it based on your diet, or a platform to connect homeowners with service providers such as cleaners and handymen and gardeners and stuff like that, and augmented reality mobile app for language translation, various things. And then I pushed it a bit further and said, okay, can you give me ideas that are more innovative and solve larger problems? And the interesting thing is, as I said, more innovative and larger problems and can get even higher revenues, then ChatGPT responded with more and more ideas that are based on AI. I don't know if this is a bias in the system because it is an AI, or because today you have to use AI if you want to build a significant business and to become competitive.
Yeah.
And it gave me 10 more and I asked for 10 more. And finally, I took one of those ideas, which was based on AI. And I said, okay, let's go with your idea number 6, a platform that utilizes AI and natural language processing to improve the accuracy and speed of legal document review and analysis. Okay, so here, it's another tip for prompt engineering. I reminded him what is that idea because he sent me so many ideas and I want it to be in the buffer, in the context. So I said, okay, this idea, give me a catchy name. So he came up with great names for a startup that does legal document analysis with AI, like Case Cracker and Legal Ease. That's a good one.
That is a good one.
Yeah, Judgify. And eventually I chose Contract IQ. By the way, he wrote here as a note, please note it's important to check the name if it's taken. Now, I had 1 hour. I didn't have time to check. Contract IQ indeed is taken, but in real life, of course, you would have to check that. So
and by the way, just to add one thing in the next iteration, and Bing already does it, you can actually check it in real time, right? So ChatGPT is offline. It's based on 2021 data, or the latest data, I should say it's from 2021. But the newer platforms are actually online, and it will not give you stuff. You can basically, again, prompt engineering, say, only give me names that are not currently taken, and it will do that. So
yeah,
we're definitely going in a direction.
It will try to do it.
It will try to do it. That's fair. Yes.
Because I've seen Bing give you references from the internet for things that it wrote, and I go to that reference, there's no connection between what it wrote and the reference. So you also need to check the reference that are given. Just go to that website online and see if it makes sense.
I want to open parentheses for a second because what you just said is very important. And I think a lot of people don't understand it. When you go to Bing and it shows you references, Bing doesn't know references. Bing is a huge, and so ChatGPT engine behind it, so GPT 3.4, now 4, GPT 4 behind it, consumed a huge amount of data. And based on that data, it gives you answers. And the answers are literally created in real time, word by word, because that's how this engine works. It's not based on one or two or three articles. It's based on all the data it's ever consumed. So the references it's giving you, it's actually an extra step where it goes back after it thought about the answer. It's like, ooh, where did I see references that are somewhat related to what I'm saying? And then it quotes these references. It's not really based on these one or three or two links that it gives you. And hence what Dror is saying is very important. Go and check the links because sometimes they're not really related because that's not what the answer is based on.
But I saw one great tip about articles. Sometimes it gives you references to articles, to papers, academic papers that don't exist. So somebody added to the prompt, give me only citations to papers that appear in Google Scholar and have at least 500 citations that somebody cited those documents. And it turns out that this really helps.
Yeah. So going back to prompts, sorry for throwing us off the path. So now you have a name.
Now I have the name. Yeah. So that's
Contract
good. That's a
IQ.
good start. And then I said, okay, I have a name. Now give me a slogan. So the first slogans weren't very good. It was like revolutionizing legal document review with AI, streamlining legal workflows with Contract IQ, smart legal document analysis with Contract IQ. Pretty boring. So I said, okay, again, continuing the conversation, can you come up with some more witty or whimsical slogans? He said, sure. He's always there to help. Leave the legalese to us. Contract IQ has got you covered. Like this one, reading between the lines, Contract IQ style. And this one, law and order, Contract IQ way. Some very good ones here. And then the next step is a business model. So what are the potential business model if you have service that can analyze legal documents using, so I got nice answers. It can be a subscription model, it can be pay-per-use. You can use value-added resellers who you could partner with and they would resell it as a service. It can be a licensing model that you license the technology to someone. You can get commission and of course, freemium. Freemium is part of the subscription. So that was pretty good. And then I said, okay, let's dive in. Again, continuing the conversation, diving into value-added reseller. Who could be possible companies? So he came up with a list. You can sell it through law firms, through accounting firms, through BPOs, business processing outsourcing, and various other types of companies. Now, BPOs was something that was new to me. So I asked, what is a BPO and who are the major BPOs in the USA? So he said, okay, you can go with Accenture, Capgemini, Cognizant, Genpact, all these names. And then I said, okay, this can be really useful because instead of searching on Google and getting a lot of results, and some of them are sponsored and some of them are biased and all of that, you just get a list of companies that you can approach one by one and use as your channel. So this was really great. And next step, before starting with actual development, I said, I want to fund this. I asked it for an investor presentation. He gave me a very nice outline. And then I digged into each one of the slides and said, okay, give me the bullets of the slide. And you can also ask for an image to accompany the slide. And if you want, you can go outside of ChatGPT. Today, there are tools that give you complete presentations based on a few terms that you put in. So you can use those tools, or you can build it with ChatGPT. And then came the step that I have the presentation. I need to show it to investors. So who can I ask for money? And then I got a list of investor types. You can go to angels, you can go to VCs, to incubators, family offices. The funny thing about family offices, when I said, okay, who are the family offices? Then he gave me a list of the largest billionaire family offices like Koch and Rockefeller and Pritzker and all of those that you would never approach with a small startup. And that's another tip. Always, when you look at the answer, it's not always the answer you expect, and it's not always the right answer. You should basically know what you're doing when you're asking it to generate lists or information or ideas, and you need to verify. And this is an important step, is verifying the output before you go. I wouldn't use it blindly because there are mistakes.
Yeah, I want to pause you for a second on two aspects of what you're saying, which are very important for people just starting to use ChatGPT. First of all, the first answer you're going to get is really generic, right? It's like vanilla. You got angel investors, you got VCs, you got private equity. You got like, I knew that. That's not really helpful. And you got to keep on drilling deeper and peeling the onion until you find gold nuggets in there. And it's true for literally everything that you do with ChatGPT. The first answer is going to really disappoint you, unless you're really good with prompt engineering. If you know how to craft the question very well. And I'll give an example related to what you just said. I was doing real market research for something I'm considering investing in. And the first answers he gave me is, again, all the giants in the market, which obviously are not relevant customers for me because I have nothing. I'm just starting a new company. They're not going to buy from me. And then you start crafting and saying, okay, who are less known? Who are smaller companies? Who are companies that are not public? Companies who make less than X number of dollars? Companies who've been around less than X number of years, that only do this little thing, but don't have other bigger services. So in the question, you start customizing it, telling it what you want, but also what you don't want. And then I got a list. And the other thing that I got to mention that people may or may not know, most of the answers you get from ChatGPT, if you don't tell it otherwise, is text, right? It's just bullet points. But you can ask it to create a table of a comparison between a list of these companies that you just have and say, okay, show me on the column 1, all the companies, column 2, links to the website, column 3, a description of them, column 4, how much money they make per year if you have access to that, column 5, the link to their CEO's LinkedIn data. And you'll get a table with all that information. It's not just the data that you can get. You can also get it in a variety of formats if you define it that way, that will be helpful for you and for you to share with other people on your team.
Yes, I agree. And one thing about the tables, I did a presentation to a nonprofit that helps people get jobs in the technology sector. And one of them said, can it improve my CV? And I said, of course. So they sent me the CV through the chat, and I copied and pasted the text into ChatGPT. And I said, improve the CV and create, show me which part you improved, what's wrong with it, and why you changed. This actually showed them that not only getting the result is important, but also understanding the process. Because if you just send your CV and it improves it and you paste it into some job website, you didn't learn anything. But if you look at the table and you look and you see what was wrong with the CV and how it changed it, the next time you will know to do it better and you will improve. So that's another important tip. Use ChatGPT not just as an end-to-end tool, but also ask it to show you what changes it made and how it improved, and then you will learn and you will improve.
Brilliant. So taking us back to the startup story. So now you had a name, you had investors, you had a slogan, you had a product. What was next?
Yeah. So next is building the company. I need people. So I asked it for a typical org chart. So I said, okay, in your startup, you probably need a CEO, a CTO, a CFO, sales, marketing, operations, engineering, legal, and HR. Great. So I started with the technical and I asked it, how can I recruit someone for the startup? And I got a lot of recruitment sources for the candidates. I can go to job boards and career websites. I can ask other employees for referrals. There are recruitment agencies. Of course, you can post on social media, et cetera, et cetera. And then I asked it to create a job description for the CTO. And after that, I said, okay, I have the job description for the CTO. Then I went to LinkedIn and just took a random CTO who has some machine learning experience and pasted their experience into ChatGPT and asked it, okay, based on the job description of the CTO, here is an actual experience of a CTO from LinkedIn. Is he suitable for this? So then I got a very nice answer that the CTO knows about machine learnings and he knows the cloud platforms and all of that, but he has more experience in finance and less in legal. So you should invite him for an interview and see how well this fits. So another important tip here, ChatGPT not only generate information in documents and question, it can analyze. So you can paste a CV and see if it's good or not. It will tell you according to a job description that you upload or it invents on its own.
This is
So,
incredible.
yeah,
It's absolutely brilliant.
yeah. Then I said, okay, I'm inviting the CTO for an interview. What should I ask? So I got 10 questions to ask the CTO. Now, if I record my interview with the CTO and transcribe it, I can go in to ChatGPT, said, okay, these are the answers to the interview questions that you generated. Are these good answers or bad answers? And should I hire the CTO or not? So I can use ChatGPT in various stages in the process of recruiting, not just for generation, but also for analysis. And then I asked it what would be the typical salary of the CTO. And he said, okay, based on data from Glassdoor, this is the average, this is the range, etc. And also asked about benefits and things like that. The next thing is to build a product. So I got from ChatGPT a crash course by asking, how do I reach product market fit for Contract IQ? So he said, okay, this is what you need to do. You define your target market, you do research, you develop an MVP, you start testing, you gather the feedback, measure and evaluate, rinse and repeat. That's the basic steps. And it's true for Contract IQ, which is a software as a service for legal documents. So that was very nice. And then I started digging into the product, the specification of the product. And this is where I was really amazed because I didn't tell it anything about this startup. ChatGPT invented the startup.
Yep.
So I said, okay, give me a spec. So here is the spec. You need a user interface. You need a module that will do the document analysis. You need collaboration features so people can work together on those documents. You need reporting and analytics. You must handle the security, and you can do integration with other platforms that handle those legal documents. So that was very nice. But
this is incredible.
Yeah,
this is really incredible.
It's really amazing, but still, it is high level.
Yeah.
So I said,
as
okay.
we said before.
Next, you mentioned, I told ChatGPT, you mentioned in point number 2, AI-powered document analysis. So take this module and give me the detailed specification. So it said, okay, here's what you need to do. You need to parse the documents. Then you do named entity recognition, NER. So you know person names, organization names, locations, get all that out of the document. Then you do sentiment analysis and clause extraction and document summarization. And you need a machine learning model, et cetera, et cetera. I said, okay, I want to dig a step deeper. You said clause extraction. And this means it's written here, the system should be able to extract and classify different types of clauses from legal documents, such as obligations, representations, and warranties. I know nothing about these types of clauses. So I said, okay, let's go to this step number 4 in step number 2, 2.4, the detailed step. How would you implement this? Please provide Python code which implements the point 4 of clause extraction. And it threw in this Python code, this amazing Python code that searches for keywords such as shall, will, must, and should. And according to these keywords, it classifies the clauses as obligations, representations, warranties, things like that. And this is the part that really amazed me. ChatGPT came up with the idea of the startup, wrote the spec of the startup, went into the details, and gave me a beginning, at least, of an implementation of the code of the actual startup. After this, I said, okay, of course, you can't do all of the platform in 1 hour. But this, again, if we're talking about a toolbox, this is a toolbox. And I have to say something. Last week, GPT-4 was released, was announced, and it's now available to all paid users of ChatGPT. And it does amazing things with code. It can write code much better and more detailed and more complete than GPT 3.5, the previous version. And if you look online, examples of people who just write an iPhone app in 1 hour or in 2 hours using ChatGPT. It doesn't do everything perfectly. Sometimes you get errors, but all you need to do is copy and paste the error back into ChatGPT, and it will tell you what to fix in the code to make that error go away, which is really amazing.
Another thing that has to do with that is the understanding of context and the understanding of what the implementation should be to generate the outcome. Another post that literally exploded last week, just as ChatGPT came out, because now ChatGPT, in an example, because I don't know, the general public doesn't have access to this, but it's an example that went viral on the internet, is somebody drew a sketch of a homepage of a website on paper with a pencil and said, okay, this is a section of the headline. This is what's happening here. Literally just a rough sketch, like a wireframe, but hand drawn, showed it to ChatGPT and it generated the code for that website. So
Right. It was in the demo
yeah,
of ChatGPT. This was done by Greg Brockman, the president and co-founder of OpenAI. And it was really an amazing demo. The image to text is not available yet,
yes.
only to very few companies, but it's really groundbreaking enhancement to just text to text.
So going again back to the process you're describing before we move on to the next step, it's really an iterative process that allows you to go back and forth and drill deeper and deeper to any idea you want, from ideation through research, through fine tuning, through clear definition to implementation. And the implementation might be writing a blog post, but the implementation also might be generating code in Python or practically any other language you want, and it will generate it for you. So it's really about understanding the power of the tool, and it's really about being curious about the next step and the next step and the next step. And this will keep on going forever until you get the answers you want.
And if you're an entrepreneur who is more from the business side, maybe you learned programming like 10 years ago, but you never touched it because you were always on the business side. Now you want to prototype something quickly or do even an MVP. ChatGPT can help you. It can tell you which tools you need. You can ask, how do I run Python on my Mac, for example? Or what should I do if the library failed to load? You can paste some error message. It will tell you how to fix it. And it can actually teach you very quickly to code. And you can be your own prototyper and build your P just to try things out without having to source it through some website or Fiverr or something like that. You can do it on your own. And of course, through this process, you learn and develop yourself as well.
Awesome. So what was the next step? So now you had a product, or at least
so I have a product,
the
I have
first lines
code,
of
I have
text.
all of that. And the next step was marketing, right? I have a product and I have a service. I need a website. How would this website look like? So you don't need to see examples. You just ask, what should the structure of Contract IQ website be? And immediately I got the answer. It should have a homepage. It should have a features page, pricing, of course, some case studies with customers is very important, and a link to the blog, and about us and careers. And of course, you must have, this is mandatory by law, terms of service and privacy policy. Okay, great. So I know what the website should look like. And then I asked it to write the text of the homepage. So it wrote the text of the homepage. Now, the nice thing that I did here, I went one step further and I used a service that is called the Durable that lets you build websites in seconds. So I built a website for Contract IQ, and you can find it in contractiq.durable.co. And here I put one of the slogans that it suggested: leave the legalese to us, Contract IQ has got you covered. And I asked Midjourney to create a photo of me who is really disappointed, and because he's funded with papers, legal documents. And I put this as a cover, and I put in the website all of the texts that I asked ChatGPT to prepare. And I even asked it to prepare a dummy team and description of those team, a CTO, a CFO. I put myself as a CEO, and I built this very nice website, like in minutes, really in a few minutes. And again, this was something that was on the marketing side. Everything, all the content that I put on that website, just copied and pasted directly from ChatGPT. So this was the website. And after the website, I asked it for a blog post so I can fill the blog section. And I asked for a funny and whimsical blog post that talks about the current challenges of legal professionals and how Contract IQ solves them. So the headline that ChatGPT chose for the blog post is "Lawyers Put Down the Red Bull and Pick Up Contract IQ." And
That's pretty good.
yeah, yeah. And it's very nice. It says, if you're a lawyer, you know the drill. Long hours, endless stacks of documents, and a never-ending sea of legal jargon. It's enough to make even the most resilient legal eagle want to throw in the towel. But what if we told you there's a way to make your life a little bit easier, etc.? And then it talks about the product and all of that. And at the end, it says, try it yourself and see the difference. With Contract IQ, you'll be saying goodbye to tedious manual document review and hello to more time for Netflix binges and cat videos. Very nice. So I have the website, I have the blog post, and after that, I asked it for some funny tweets that I can put on the social channels, etc., etc. So basically, you can do everything. And as a final step, I asked it to find some potential candidates for M&A, potential companies who might be interested in acquiring a company that can analyze legal documents with AI. And it came up with some interesting names. And the last thing was write a contract between Thank You and the company that's acquiring for the sale of the company for $50 million. And with contracts, I have to say, it doesn't always like to do that. Sometimes it says, okay, you want a contract, go to a lawyer. Initially, it would do any contract, any legal document you wanted. Then I think they started restricting it because they didn't want to get into issues. So in my experiment, I asked it to draft office lease contract. This was one of the things in operations. And it did that. It drafted a contract for the office. But then at the end, which was like half an hour later, I asked it to do an M&A contract, and it refused. It would only give me some bullet points and features of the contract, but not the actual of the contract.
I want to say something regarding that, as well as other aspects of the implementation of things. It's obviously getting better and it's obviously happening very fast. But I think the first step where we are right now, you still need the professional human in the loop, but that professional human in the loop can do the work he used to do in a month in 3 days. This is really the magic that we're in right now. So if you want to write code, you would probably still hire a developer. You definitely would hire a CTO because somebody needs to build the system architecture and design all the platform and create the tech stack behind it and all these kind of things. Yes, you need those people. And you need people to actually know how to connect the code together and deploy it and so on the environment that you created. But those people can now use tools like ChatGPT and many other tools and create the things they need to create significantly faster. So again, and the ratio I was talking about, I wasn't joking. It's something that took months can take days. Something that took days can take hours or minutes. And it's nothing short of magic. And I think the interesting thing here, or maybe the biggest take out of all of this really amazing thing that you did, is we're in a very significant inflection point in mankind history. And the implication of that on our day-to-day life and definitely on businesses is nothing like we've ever seen before. And there's really two options. You can either learn, adapt, and learn how to use these tools so your company can do in days what it used to do in months, or run out of business. There is no third option.
Yes, I agree. It's really an inflection point. Some compare it to the invention of the web and the mobile, and some say it is even bigger than that. Someone even compared it to invention of the fire or the wheel. And I really think the difference here with the web and the mobile, for example, is that everything will happen much faster. And we see so many announcements in the past few weeks and the past few days, and the rate is just accelerating. And the reason is that those companies who are developing the tools are using the tools.
Yep.
And they're using the tools to accelerate themselves. And that's why they are working faster. For the rest of the industry, it is sometimes hard to cope and to keep up and to be able to adopt these tools because they are coming out so fast. But again, as you said, if you're not into this and you don't try this out and you don't use it, you will be left behind. You will be swept by this wave, this tsunami that is coming at us of more and more generative AI tools. And if you saw the demo by Microsoft, how they're integrating it into 365, and you can ask anywhere about anything, create a slide from the last meeting notes, or summarize this document for an email I need to send, or whatever. Everything is connected. The tool has not only all the knowledge of the internet, when it has the knowledge of your company,
Yeah.
it can bring insights, which are business insights about your company and things that are important to you. And this really changes everything. So
Yeah.
my advice would be hold on tight.
I agree. I want to say something about the internet and the comparison to current revolution, the AI revolution to the internet revolution. And I had that conversation several times in the past few weeks. I remember the first night I went online to the internet. It was very underwhelming. It was me and a good friend of mine. We were sharing an apartment in Tel Aviv, and we bought a modem. We had a computer and we bought a modem,
yeah.
and we connected it and we ran it and went like this, went all these weird noises, and then we were online and we had no clue what to do.
What next? Yeah.
Okay, we're in. What do we do now? Because there was no browsers, there was like a prompt line, but we didn't have a clue what to do with it. So this was 94. Okay, this was the first time I went online. I went backpacking in South America in 99. That was the first time I opened an email address for myself. So 5 years passed from the moment I went online for the first time to the moment I had an email address. Forget about do all the stuff that we take for granted today, buying stuff and booking travel and seeing the weather in real time through satellite imagery and stuff like that. Getting an email from the moment there was an online access at home, 5 years. What's happening right now is happening every single day. Every few hours, there's an advancement. And again, I don't think any company, not a single company in the world is ready to deal with that rate of change. But I think that might be the most important skill businesses will have to do, is how to adapt very quickly to new capabilities. And obviously, the bigger the company, the more problematic what I said becomes. But there will be no other way, because otherwise, smart, smaller companies who can adapt very fast and take tools that make things more efficient will not close the gap on you, but will run circles around you very quickly if you don't know how to find the right tools that do the best thing for the business goals, which is the other tip that I will give. And then we can wrap this up, because you and I can do this probably for a week. But it's at the end of the day, there's business strategy, right? And people are really tempted right now, people who are very interested and engaged in the AI world. The tactics is very tempting because it's incredible and it has tools that are nothing like we've ever seen before, and their efficiency is through the roof. But if you just jump to the tactics, you may screw up your business strategy. There's still business fundamentals that have to be followed. You have to, probably adapt your business strategy, because with these tools integrated into what your industry does, it may be a very different industry. But once you do that, now find the tools that support the strategy that you've defined with the right people, the right teams, the right processes. Everything else we've known about business so far still works. It just works faster and more efficient.
Right. And you need an AI strategy. You need to know which tools you want and how you want to work with them. And also, another important thing, this doesn't only affect the high-tech sector.
Of course.
It affects any company. It affects anyone who is working with information, either consuming information or producing information or making decisions based on information. And everybody's doing that. Right? From the lowest rank clerk to the CEO, everybody's working on information and making decisions. And each one of these functions can be assisted and really supercharged using the generative AI tools.
Dror, this was incredible, fascinating, fun. I have so many superlatives to use here. Thank you so much for doing this. If people want to follow you, connect with you, work with you, what's the best way to do that?
I'm mainly active on LinkedIn. You can search for me on LinkedIn, Dror Gil with a double L. And there you will find my posts, including the link to the full document of the 1 hour startup. I open sourced it, so you can find it there. I'll be very happy to hear from you and connect with you. And thank you, Isar, for inviting me, because I also had an awesome time here. It was a great experience, and I look forward to sometimes doing it again.
I'm sure we will. Thank you so much for coming and sharing this with all of us and for doing this and for helping people be more knowledgeable about the topic of AI and how to implement it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Woo! Zamadim. Wow. What an amazing conversation with Dror. He obviously understands AI very well and business very well. And the combination makes him a really amazing expert. And there was so much to take from this episode. And now for the news section of this episode. First, I want to apologize for not doing the news section. I know a lot of you are waiting for that. I was away hiking in the Canadian Rockies with my family with very limited access to internet. And so I could not do that. But this week, there were actually some really big news. So I'm glad I'm back and that I can share that with you. So the first piece of news is that Amazon announced the AWS Generative AI Innovation Center. It's a program to help customers successfully build and deploy generative artificial intelligence solutions. They're investing $100 million in this new program that will allow AWS users to leverage machine learning and generative AI tools built straight into their cloud hosting platform. Obviously, Amazon are not new to the AI game. They've been running AI models within different components of their platform, including product recommendations, etc., for 25 years. It's also not coming as a surprise because Microsoft in Azure and Google in Google Cloud have announced that they're providing similar platforms. So this doesn't come in a vacuum. They're investing $100 million in this new program, which sounds like a lot of money, but it's not a huge amount of money compared to the size of Amazon and the amount of cash they're sitting on, which is $60 billion. And it's not a huge amount of money if you compare it to the amount of money that Google and or Microsoft are investing in their efforts, but it's definitely showing that they want to stay relevant and stay a part of this race as far as providing AI tools built into cloud services for anybody who wants to use their services. It means that really every future software that is going to exist out there, or the vast majority of them, and it doesn't matter which platform they're going to be hosted, are going to have AI capabilities built straight into them because the platforms that host these will provide it out of the box. So even if companies do not develop it themselves, they would be able to provide these capabilities to anybody who's using basically any software hosted on at least one of the three big platforms. Another big piece of news from this past week is that the European Union has passed their Artificial Intelligence Act. Their AI Act categorizes applications into different levels of risk, from unacceptable risk to high risk to limited risk and minimal or no risk. And based on that, what different kinds of regulations apply to them. They've also passed a different set of rules for the foundation models that run underneath these. So tools like ChatGPT and Bard and Claude, etc. And an interesting thing that happened is that shortly after they published that, Stanford University made a study to review the requirements for those base models, and they found that none of the existing models, both closed and open source models, failed to pass the guidelines that the EU have set for these rules. Now, companies could be fined very hefty fines and up to 4% of their global revenue if they don't meet the standards that the EU have defined. I think it will be very interesting to see what's the lobby of these companies can do to massage or manipulate the law that has passed parliament but has not been written into law yet. In addition, it will be very interesting to see what happens once it goes into law and what these companies have to do in order to align themselves with this kind of regulation. I think it's critically important, and I said this on this podcast before, that some kind of legislative regulations are put in place in order to have better safety and better control over AI from several different aspects, from how they can collect data to what they can do with the data to what tools can be built on top of that, etc. And so I see this as a very positive step forward. At the same time, this week, the US Science and Space Committee held an artificial intelligence hearing about advancing innovation towards the national interest. Again, discussions at the highest levels within the US government in this case to have a better understanding of where this is going and what needs to be put in place in order to increase the chances of enjoying the beneficial sides of AI while hopefully avoiding as much as possible from the negative impacts that it brings with it. The last piece of update that I want to give you is that Midjourney has released their version 5.2. Midjourney is one of the tools that allows you to go from text to image. It's the most advanced one by a very big spread. And in version 5.2, in addition to the improvement in the overall platform, they've introduced a few new cool options. One of them is the ability to select how much variation you want to have when you ask it to create a variation on an existing photo. So do you want a lot of variation or just a little bit of variation? And it will give you the results accordingly. The other one is a zoom out feature that allows you to basically zoom out on an image that you created to create more image around it. And you can keep doing that again and again to create more and more visible area of the image. It's a very cool feature. A lot of people are doing really cool stuff with it online. You can decide how far to zoom out, meaning if you get an image of a close-up portrait of somebody and you want just a little more behind it, it becomes a very helpful tool for you to do that. In addition, you can make really cool videos of stuff that keeps on zooming out and zooming out from one little tiny thing to an entire universe while just using a very simple to use tool without any fancy tools or any experience of creating these kind of images and videos. So these are the news for today. Keep on exploring AI. Keep looking for ways to apply it in your business. And if you find anything cool or interesting, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, Isar Meitis, ISAR MEITIS. And please share your thoughts. I would gladly have a chat with you and share it on the show. And until next time, have an amazing week.